Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Minority Reportz podcast and digital series. I am your host, Mona Sheikh. You guys, we are switching up the time a little bit today because we have a very special guest, and I wanted to accommodate her. She is kind enough to call us in all the way from Berlin, and since we have a massive time difference between Los Angeles and Berlin, I wanted her to be a guest on this. This woman is extraordinary. I was reading up about her, and she's a research associate at the Center for Middle Eastern and North African Politics I'm totally going to butcher this, at the Freie Universität Berlin. And another really fun fact about this amazing lady is that she participated in the Egyptian Revolution, which I wanted to learn and know everything about. So please welcome my very special guest today, Dina Wahba. Dina, welcome.
Hi, Mona. I'm very happy to be here today with you, and thank you so much for accommodating my time. I'm really happy to be here.
Oh, it's an honor, Dina. It's totally an honor. By the way, did I totally butcher the name? Did I butcher it? What did I do?
Well, it's in German, so I don't mind. It's a Free University Berlin, so you can just say Free University. That's also
Free
fine.
University Berlin. Got it. Now, Dina, I was reading up about you, and it's interesting. The reason I discovered you is because there's been a really big conversation about some innocent female Egyptian influencers in Egypt who are jailed currently, and because of debauchery. And it never seems to amaze me. Me being from Pakistan, you being from Egypt. When I hear this kind of stuff, you're like, you just can't make this shit up. You just can't. Debauchery. You know what I define as debauchery? Partying from like 7 p.m. till 8 in the morning, going bar and club hopping, like drinking myself silly and smoking a bunch of weed. That's what I call debauchery, So I discovered you were briefly talking about it. And I was just like, I gotta invite this lady over. So I want to kind of start from the beginning about, you went to a university in Cairo, correct?
Yes, exactly.
And what did you study there?
Political science.
Okay, cool. So you were very much, I've been to Cairo, love Cairo, big fan. I would totally love to go back. But what I wanted to know was, what got you interested in political science?
I think from the very beginning, my father was also political, and this really influenced me a lot growing up. So I really wanted to study it. I grew up in a house where there were a lot of discussions about politics, and this is something that I was always passionate about. Mm-hmm. So I ended up studying political science in Cairo University, which I actually enjoyed very much. But then I also became more and more interested when the revolution happened. So I participated in the revolution, and then I tried to participate in the democratic transition that was supposed to happen. But then it didn't go so well, as you may know. But I wanted to continue my study, and I went to study also gender studies, because this is something also that I got really interested in, and then back to political science again now.
Got it. So Dina, did you grow up in like a conservative Muslim household? What was that?
Actually, my family are both Muslims, and they were practicing as I grew up, but they were never conservative in the sense that they were limiting me or that they were limiting my behavior. They were pushing me forward to pursue my education. I mean, my father also stood up for me when I wanted to leave the country in order to go and pursue my master's. They were really supportive in that sense, in the sense of me. My mother was really scared of me pursuing a political career or being a political activist, understandably so. But other than this, they were actually, I would say, moderate practicing Muslims who were also always try to keep an open mind and push me forward.
That's amazing. Are you an only child, or do you have siblings?
No, I have a brother, a younger brother. Yeah.
So, okay, a younger brother. So you guys were pretty much kind of given the same kind of access to education and access to freedom, I'm thinking.
I was better in school, so I ended up getting better opportunities, education opportunities than him actually, because of competencies. But yeah, growing up, I think my parents really tried, which is very difficult in such a society. But they really tried to give me as much as opportunities as they were able to.
Right. I mean, and kudos to your parents, right? I mean, Dina, is that something that is common in Egyptian or society specifically? You're born and raised in Cairo, I'm assuming?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
So I mean, in Cairo, is it commonplace to have families like yourself?
Unfortunately not. And to be very honest, also my family struggled in order to be able to raise me a bit differently. It wasn't an easy task for them. And unfortunately, this is not common. Most families like focus on how to control their daughters and how to keep the honor in the family, as you can imagine, and how to control their movement, their education, their work, their sexual freedoms. So it's actually quite uncommon, and I was lucky in that, but this is not the general case, of course.
Yes, of course. I mean, I had a guest yesterday on my live stream, and we were talking about how predominantly Muslim countries tend to place the honor of their families in a woman's vagina. I don't
Exactly.
know why the honor belongs in a woman's vagina. There's not a lot of room in there. So I don't know why they're trying to stuff their family honor in women's vaginas and that we have to carry the burden. And you know what the shittiest part is, Dina? We don't even get to choose our own last names. We have to either have our husband's last name or our dad's last name. We don't even get to have our own last name, but somehow we are responsible for the family honor, which is
exactly.
It's freaking ridiculous, right? Pakistan is, of course, the same way. So you come to Berlin and you're like, hey, I'm gonna study political science and gender studies. So what has been one of the big kind of discoveries for you throughout your education?
I think really studying gender studies opened my eyes to sort of how patriarchy works and how it does exist everywhere. And it made me think of so many small and intimate things growing up that I didn't see. Power relations in the household, sort of how women are being socialized in order to stick to certain gender roles. I mean, all of these things I felt them, but I never really critically understood them. And studying gender studies really helped me in that, but also how the state deals with the question of women, especially states that are undemocratic or authoritarian, how they also centralize the question of women in order to protect the family under the guise of protecting the family and protecting the values of the society. So all of this, I think it was really revealing for me when I studied gender. And then I went back to studying political science because the situation in Egypt has been going from complicated to even more complicated. And I really wanted to spend the time to sort of try to unravel some of the important questions of what happened after the revolution.
Right. Patriarchy. It's a big conversation right now. In the West, especially, big conversation. It's a conversation that's taking place in the Middle East and South Asia too, but not on the level that it's taking place in the West. Germany is a very liberal country, at least it comes across that way. America, not so much, sadly, not right now with our crazy current orange president we have in place. Toxic, is there such a thing as good or positive patriarchy, Dina?
Not in my opinion. I think there is no positive spin to patriarchy, unfortunately. There are ways that we can deconstruct, deal with, limit, dismantle, detangle patriarchy, but I don't think we can talk about a good patriarchy, because even the what is supposed to be a good value of patriarchy, like the protection of women, is usually used against women to limit their own participation in public life and public sphere under the guise of protection. So even the good values that are associated with patriarchy are often used and instrumentalized in order to, again, control women. So I'm not sure that there is any good in or about patriarchy, to be honest.
Have you, throughout your gender studies come across societies that are more matriarchal than patriarchal?
No, I think that it's interesting. The pervasiveness of patriarchy all around the world right now is something that is so interesting for me and so complex. And I always find out whenever I go to a different country and live in a different country how patriarchy just works on a different logic. It's still there. It still exists, but it's just so in one place they can take religion, in another place it could be under the guise of an ideological guise, in another place it's capitalism. So I mean, it does exist almost everywhere. It just have a different instruments and different ways of disguising itself in order to be able to control women. But there are more countries that are doing more and more to fight patriarchy with gender sensitive legislative frameworks, with making sure that women are presented in politics, with making sure. So there are countries that are doing better, but I wouldn't call them more matriarchal.
What about Norwegian? I'm sorry. Yeah, like more. I guess is it Norwegian? Is that the correct? Yeah, Norwegian nations. Like, would you not say like? I have a friend of mine. Sweden is a Norwegian country, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a comedian friend of mine, and he always tells me that whenever he has a pretty big fan base in Sweden, and he's like, man, you go to like the cafes, and like these gorgeous like supermodels are like sweeping the floor, and they don't even know how beautiful they are. And he's like, but they're so humble about the whole thing. They're just because everybody's just so stunning. And one of the key things he told me about was that if you go on a date with a woman in Sweden and you try to pick up the tab, she takes it as an offense, as if you're trying to have sex with her, and just kind of maybe force yourself on her in that way rather than go Dutch. Going Dutch is a big deal. So would you not say that more Norwegian nations are maybe a little bit more matriarchal than patriarchal?
I think you mean Nordic nations Scandinavian countries. I think Scandinavian countries are one of the countries because they're also welfare states, and they're one of the countries that are doing better in terms of gender equality in general. And I do know there are amazing feminists there who are still critical of the situation, especially with the rise of the far right, also in Nordic countries, that are trying to also talk also about values and talk about radical feminists as crazy. So the fight is still going on, but they are doing much better, definitely, on gender equality. In representation, in political representation, in legislative framework, maternal leave. So they've been working on this very, very hard, and it's a set of policies. So it's not only just a nature of a society that is more patriarchal and a nature that is more matriarchal. It's a set of policies that feminists have been working very hard on, and that have been passed, and they have been doing much better than other countries in Western Europe or in the US, definitely.
Sure. So, I mean, now we are in this interesting place where, going back to Egypt and these incredible, amazing influencers. I do want to read their names because I do want the world to know their names, because it is super important to know these beautiful, incredibly smart, empowering women who are being who are being demeaned and having their powers taken away. So the ladies' names are Haneen Hussam, Mawada Al-Adham, Mena Abdul Aziz, Sherry Hanem, Nora Hisham, Manar Sami, Rinad Imad, Hadir Hadi, and Basant Ahmed. How did I do with the names pronunciation?
Very good, actually.
Yes?
Very, very good. And I have some good news that Minna Abdelaziz was just released today.
Oh,
yeah.
fabulous.
So that's good. And I think talking about them helps, and all kind of support that we do. So thank you very much for this. I think talking about these women, not letting us forget about them, and just saying their names is really very strong. And I was very happy to hear that Minna was just released today.
Thank God. So you said Manar Sami, right?
Minna.
Oh, Minna. Yeah. Minna Abdulaziz.
Yeah.
Okay, Abdulaziz. So So, what happens? Do they get their passports revoked? Do they get their accounts deleted? What happens to these influencers, these female influencers?
I mean, a myriad of things. Every case is different. Some of them got some of their videos, personal videos and pictures leaked from their phones. So they got arrested. They took their phones and they leaked some of their personal videos and photos and actually used these videos against them in the case. So yeah, you cannot make this shit up. You're right.
The first time I read the news, I was like, this is literally what went through my mind. I was like, what the fucky fuck? That is what went through my mind. I was like, what the fucky fuck? Like, leave the fucking women alone. Like,
yes.
Leave us alone. Fuck off. Like, don't you have other things to do? Don't you have fucking roads to fucking take care of,
Corona, COVID-19.
Infrastructure, take care of the economy, perhaps create more jobs, create a better lifestyle for your citizens. Why the fuck are they always after women and controlling? Dina, what's fascinating to me, and this is like in predominantly Muslim countries, and also fuck that. You know what? Across the globe. Fuck just, saying that it's just the predominantly Muslim countries. This need to consistently, they can't even decide if they want to control us or fuck us or both. Like, they just make up your fucking mind. What do you want from us? Like, what do you want? It's like so exhausting where you're like, it's hard enough that I gotta grow, that I have to worry about predators outside when I take a walk who are trying to rape me and catcall me and demean me and trying to touch me. Then on top of that, my government wouldn't come out and support me because I'm an influencer, because I danced on camera, which probably, let me tell you something, not to be gross, they probably rubbed one out too.
Exactly.
Okay, let's not let's expose the fucking hypocrisy of these two-faced assholes. But because they're in positions of power, they feel like they can just go and do whatever they want. By the way, Dina, do male influencers in Egypt get the same brunt the way females do?
Of course not. The crackdown is really predominantly on women. There have been some minor arrests with some men who have been putting content that is actually sex positive or spreading information about sexual health. They were also arrested, but this recent crackdown has been predominantly on women and women on TikTok.
So what happens to the men that get arrested? Do they also have same things happen to them the way it happens to the female?
No, I think it's much more like what happens. Actually, most of the women, the men who get arrested, their names are not being put in the paper. They don't get defamation, but the women do. I mean, the women get really defamed in the media, hate speech, leaking their personal photos and videos, showing how they are immoral. I mean, really, like their lives are their lives and the lives of their families are being really destroyed just because they had a TikTok account with many followers and they were dancing to some songs. I mean, if you also see the content, there is nothing. I mean, even remote
content.
It's nothing. It's just young women dancing, enjoying themselves. I mean, it's something that any woman their age is probably doing anywhere in the world.
Yes.
And for that, they are arrested for violating family values. I have no idea what these family values are, but for violating family values and, like you said,
debauchery.
Inciting debauchery.
So the men's name, the guys who get arrested, they're sex positive. They're like, it's okay, man. It's okay if you expose yourself or your sex pot. It's cool. You can just go do your thing. But the women, are being shamed and demeaned. So, so like you said, these women, are they even allowed to then be like, you know what, fuck this, I'm out of here, I'm leaving the country? Are they allowed to leave the country or they're on a lockdown?
No, some of them are in jail also. So they're really not allowed to leave the country or in court cases. And it's also not easy to leave the country because they're seen then as flight risk. So they don't get a visa because they can apply for asylum somewhere else. And so even if they can uproot their lives in this way, it's actually very difficult for them to be able to leave the country. And most of these women who are arrested in the recent crackdown are lower middle class. They are not privileged women. They are not rich women. They are educated, but not all of them have enough money even to take an airplane and leave the country.
Wow. Dina, you also have to kind of stop and think, how many women have to flee the country? How many? How many women would have to leave the country to save themselves and to practice their God-given right of freedom? How many? How many have to flee the country because, the men, the corrupt men in positions of power who abuse their power are not being held accountable? So I guess my question to you is, Dina, that we know that we have certain government that is in place in Egypt right now. Are there not other men who protest, who are in opposition to the government, to be like, this is fucked up? You're not going to do this to our women.
I mean, honestly, we do have allies, lawyers, human rights activists who have been outspoken about this, journalists who have been writing about this, who have been assisting the women in their court cases, who have been really trying. It's also quite dangerous to be an opposition figure in Egypt, so it's not an easy task. Sure. But I have to say that feminists in Egypt have been working really hard to raise awareness about the case, locally and internationally. And yes, we do have many male allies, whether, like I said, activists, lawyers, journalists, who have been trying very hard to support the women throughout these ordeal. And just say that this is just ridiculous. This is not even. This is just ridiculous. It's not even. Exactly. It's not even a political cause. It's just a nonsense, ridiculous thing that is happening, and it is not worth really lives being destroyed over this.
What? So now the other women that are currently in jail, the influencers. So what? They have to put up money, or they have pro bono lawyers who are coming and fighting their case for them? I mean, it must be an expensive task to hire a lawyer to take care of this case, to get them out of jail.
Yeah, it's a mixture of trying to having NGOs who are willing and able to be there for them for pro bono, but also some of the women also had to hire lawyers by themselves from their own money and from their family's money. So it's a mix. Every case is a bit different, but yes, it's a lot of money, and it's a lot of time wasted, and going through a traumatic experience of being in jail and not being aware why. Not being even aware of what kind of law did you violate by dancing? What crime did you commit?
Is there a law? Is there a law in the Egyptian constitution that these women have violated? I'm trying to understand this.
Actually, there is a law that is against the Egyptian constitution. So the Egyptian constitution does not allow this, actually. It allows it protects freedom of speech. But the current law that is there, that says that you can be arrested for violating family values, which is a very vague regulation that could be, we could be violating family values right now just by using.
I violate family values all day, Dina.
Like every day.
White. Come on.
That's part of who I am. So yes, this is also a vague clause that was put there so that they can arrest women at any point on any case, unfortunately.
So, and what? Are their families' names being exposed? Are the families being shamed? I'm horrified at the thought of what is happening to these girls in jail.
Yeah, we don't have much information about what is happening to them in jail, actually. I mean, they have very limited contact with their lawyers, and this is where we get some information. It's from their lawyers. But yes, their names are in the paper, pictures, they're being vilified. Also, their families are being vilified. They're being framed as immoral, loose women. Some of them are being framed into cases of prostitution even, yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's a really, really, even if hopefully when they get released, which I'm hoping that they get released and the charges get dropped, it's still a very long way to go after the scandal that they have been through.
I mean, are there women not kind of, is this a thing in Egypt where women take it to the streets when shit like this happens? Because it's a big deal that women in Pakistan and India, they take it to the streets. They're like, fuck you guys, we're taking this shit to the streets. Is it like that in Egypt?
It's slightly more dangerous to do that in Egypt than Pakistan. Yes, it is. Yeah. It's a bit more dangerous. I mean, you could also be thrown in jail, arrested. Yeah.
Protesting?
Yes. Yes. So it's a bit complicated. However, I have to say that also feminists all over the world, Egyptian feminists all over the world have been working on this cause, trying to campaign and raise awareness and rally support for the women so that they can be released. But yeah, taking to the streets can be a big risk in Egypt. So it's something that is not so easy for feminists to decide to take to the streets, unfortunately.
So I know that Mona Al-Tahawi is a very outspoken Egyptian journalist. I mean, I just love and adore her. I think also we share the same name. So, but she's way more fabulous than I am. She's amazing. I love her. I mean, has she been kind of talking about this case? And I'm sure she has. I don't even know for a second.
Yeah, she has been tweeting, writing, campaigning about this case. I mean, she has been also showing like contradictions of, how some Egyptian male stars always get photo shoots half naked and very sexual photos, and this is seen as fine, and everyone celebrates them, like Mo Salah, for example, while these women are being arrested just for dancing with their clothes on. I mean, but she has been, I mean, I have been really inspired by all of the Egyptian and Arab feminists around the world, actually, who came to support this cause. Really, it's a very difficult moment and a very difficult situation, but also extremely inspiring at how these women who have never met these women, who do not know them, but they all feel threatened. All of us now feel threatened that if we post a video of us dancing or in a party, or that we could be arrested one day just for posting a video of a party that we went to, or a gathering that we were together, or just dancing in a video. That this is so they all feel threatened, and they all felt like they need to stand beside the girls.
You know, Dina, the interesting thing is that in America right now, the number one song that is on our Billboard chart is called WAP. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's
of course, Cardi B is everything for us.
Exactly.
Really.
Megan Thee Stallion have a number one song called WAP, which is wet ass pussy, is what it stands for.
Yeah.
While we have our beautiful, amazing influencer Egyptian sisters in Egypt who are being persecuted and thrown in prison for barely dancing. They're not talking about, I got a gushy wet ass pussy. They're not even talking about their pussies. They are just talking. They're just dancing, right? And Dina, am I understanding this correctly, that belly dancing is a big part of the Egyptian culture, is it not?
Exactly. And this is why is it also a bit confusing, is that you also have a lot of belly dancers in Egypt who are very famous, who have followers, millions and millions of followers all over the world, very beautiful. They have dance videos. So it was also almost like nonsensical again to arrest these young women who are like not doing nothing compared to other belly dancers who are like beloved by millions and millions, and this is something that is extremely accepted. So yeah, it's really ridiculous what is happening, and it doesn't make any sense. And you do have, you're right, you do have many belly dancers who are still posting. But now, honestly, every time I see a video of a beautiful woman dancing, I'm like, I have anxiety that she will get arrested in Egypt. It's becoming crazy. And we're even afraid, we make a joke between ourselves, we're even afraid to share these videos in order not to get them more attention. Which is it's absolutely crazy.
Dina, do you feel that Egypt is in a better place today than it was during Mubarak's time? I know it's a complex question. It's a complex question. It's a very, I don't expect a simple answer to this question, but do you feel, as far as political stability, maybe a little bit more freedoms of people, maybe I'm just, I'm not entirely sure on that. Where do you think it is during his time versus where it is now?
I mean, the thing is, Mubarak's time was 30 years, so it was a lot of time. But I would say that the last 5 years of Mubarak's regime were actually better. There were more opening, more freedom of speech, more space for people to participate politically than now. However, I would say that on the gender front, women are becoming more and more fierce and more taking up space and more getting into the job market and into education and fighting for the rights to their bodies. And I think there is a major change on that from Mubarak's time until now. And I wouldn't say it's because of the political regime necessarily, but it's because women have been taking more and more space since the Egyptian revolution. More space now, more than ever before. Yes.
But they're also getting arrested and thrown in prison.
Exactly. There's also, I think there is a backlash that is very common. Whenever there is an opening, whenever women are pushing more boundaries, there's always a backlash by conservative and regressive forces. Always. These things always come together. So whenever they feel threatened, then comes a backlash, either in the sense of arrests and a legal backlash, or in the sense of societal backlash and trying to raising the tide and talk about family tradition and talk about going back to our roots and our values and all of these things. So I think this is really truly a reaction to women in the past 10 years trying to push forward the boundaries of what is acceptable in Egyptian society.
I mean, it always is boiled down to women, have to. So women only have two roles, which almost goes back to biblical times, which is you're the Madonna or the whore. There's no middle ground for you, right? Either you're the good, quiet wife and the good, quiet daughter and the good, quiet, just doing what is asked of you as a daughter, as a sister. Just just follow the tradition, or you're this fucking whore that's just out there blowing every dude that she can get her hands on.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
There's no other role for women. That's it. Those are all the only roles that we are born to fulfill. How does this ever get resolved, Dina?
I think we keep being the whore. I think we keep trying to push and blur those lines and just exist, really. I mean, this is why I find it so inspiring about the women's rights movement or the feminist movements, is that women resist just by existing, by being who they are, by refusing to be the Madonna, by refusing to be the saint, by saying, okay, thank you, but no thank you. This is not something that I'm interested in. Yes. And this is not something that will be given us by a state or a man. This is something that we have to take for ourselves. And it's a difficult fight, and it's a historical fight, and it's a long-term fight. It's not something that will happen between in one night, but this is something that we have to work on.
Has Egypt ever had female leadership?
As a president, no. There have been female ministers, there have been influential female political figures, female academics, intellectuals, but as the head of a country, no. Or a prime minister, even no.
Never. Not
Never.
even close. Not even close.
No.
Because God forbid.
Yeah, exactly.
God forbid, you know?
Exactly.
I must confess, in Pakistan, we've had a female prime minister.
Yeah.
They ended up murdering her and assassinating her. Well, that's besides the point. At least she was in power at some point. And then they were like, nah, we want to really murder her. So they did. First, they shot her in the back, and then they blew up her. And then they blew her up with a suicide bomber. Dina, I want to ask you, are assassinations a big deal in Egypt? Is that a common thing where there are political rivals and one hires an assassin where, the political rival is at a red light, two guys come up in a motorcycle, shoot the guy in the head, and then just drive off? Is that a thing in Egypt?
Actually, not right now. What is more a thing is being imprisoned or exiled. So forced to leave the country, forced to, either you're put in jail or you have to flee. But not assassination, no.
No assassination. So you guys don't have. So Pakistan has been is pretty notorious for assassinations. So if you don't like someone, if you have a political rival, you just basically hire assassins. There's a lot of assassins you can hire, and they just show up at a red light. They put 2 bullets in your head and then just drive off. And there's no real police report. There's no real investigation of any kind. So I often wondered how common that is. It's interesting. I have a lot of, there's a big Persian population, Iranian population in Los Angeles. I have a lot of Iranian friends. My grandfather is from Iran, so I'm quarter Iranian. And I have a lot of Iranian friends, and that's one of the things that I was asking them. I was just like, do you guys have assassinations in your country where people just come and like shoot somebody and they drive off? They're like, no, we don't have that. So when it comes to that, Pakistan is a pretty wild west in that sense. But I'm interested. I was very pretty fascinated by what you just said, that women can't really take it to the streets to protest because they'll be arrested and all kinds of stuff. It's not like that in Pakistan. So it's the war between the mullahs, the Muslim conservatives, and the intellectuals. So Pakistan is this very interesting place where the intellectuals are going head to head with these crazy, religious conservatives who keep making it about religion when it really is about separation of church and state, freedom of speech, and freedom of press, really. Do you feel, Dina, that maybe at some point, maybe in our lifetime, we will get to see an Egyptian country or Egyptian leadership where they somehow ask for and demand for or some kind of an amendment in the Constitution if it's not already there, that there is freedom, that there is separation of religion and state, there is freedom of speech, and then there's freedom of press. Is that something you think we can see?
Not in the short term. So I'm not sure if that's if it can happen during my lifetime. But I think it's an eventuality. Like this is not, the situation is not sustainable. It can sustain itself for 10, 20, 30 years, 40 even. But I think it's an eventuality. Maybe not in the short term. Doesn't seem like it's gonna happen in the next 5 or 10 years.
Yeah.
But on the long term, this is not sustainable. This cannot be sustainable.
But Dina, we had some people might come out and make an argument that, hey, Mubarak was in power for like 30 years, and that was sustainable, and that kept going. And now we're in a position where we have current leadership in Egypt that is continuing that pretty much ruling with tyranny. So why is that? I mean, it seems pretty sustainable to me.
Well, Mubarak was not sustainable. So the people at the end of the day went to the streets and took him out.
Sure.
So that's an important lesson, I would say, that everyone has learned. And I mean, there can't be this cannot continue. I mean, you will not. It doesn't make economic sense. It doesn't make political sense. This cannot continue, and the people will keep pushing boundaries. I mean, it is dangerous, but if history taught us anything, is that these authoritarian regimes also have weak points, and they cannot keep stability for a long time.
Right. I mean, the current leadership has the backing of the military, do they not?
Yes.
So it's the same issue in Pakistan, where the current prime minister, ish, he was democratically elected, which was a good thing, but he's not really kind of living up to the standards and hopes of what people thought that he would do. Inflation is out of control. There's still a lot of prevalent corruption. Of course, I don't expect him to single-handedly wave a wand and just magically change things. But, we did hope that the country was going to move be a little bit more progressive and forward. But I often wonder, in nations like Egypt, in Pakistan, and even other, predominantly Muslim countries, does having female leadership make a difference? Or would those female leaders be, kind of influenced and be intimidated by their fellow corrupt male politicians who are going to force them to do things that they really don't want to?
I think this is a very interesting discussion also about quotas, whether or not having a women's quota in the parliament works or not, and what kind of women. So you don't just want there are women who are also opposed to women's rights, as you may know, also from Pakistan, and there are women who lobby very hard against other women. So I think there needs to be a threshold. So when we talk about 25-30% representation, that this is the minimum. That you cannot just put one or two women as a tokenistic women and just say, look, we have women leadership. There needs to be a threshold, but also there needs to be a push for not just any women, but also feminist women who see the women's agenda as part of their agenda, women who are willing to stand up and have integrity and sort of, but also women who engage on wider topics such as corruption, for instance, like you mentioned. And I think that this has been the discussion when we talk about women's representation. We're always met with, but the women, you can also have women there who are against you. So then the discussion becomes, then we need to push for all women to be represented, but also push forward even more for women who stay true to the women's rights agenda and who are willing, progressive women, so not just women who support conservative parties or regime loyal.
Right. Ooh, yeah. So Dina, do you worry about your life traveling back to Egypt, since you are so outspoken and you do comment about the current Egyptian regime? Are you concerned about your safety when you travel back to Egypt?
I mean, until now, I didn't have any problems, so that's good. So until now, I'm okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, sometimes, of course, we're all concerned. I mean, anyone who is outspoken is concerned, definitely.
Sure. I mean, Jihan Nujam. Do you know who she is? Jihan Nujam?
Yeah.
She is a fantastic filmmaker, documentarian based in LA. I met her through a mutual friend. And she, when the Egyptian Revolution was happening, she made a film called The Square, which was about, of course, the main square where the big revolution was taking place in Egypt. And one of the key things she talks about, which is a documentary absolutely worth watching and checking out, because it is so harrowing and it is so brave and raw and just insightful and hopeful and terrifying. It's just has an array of emotions when you watch it. And one of the key things she talked about is when she got there, because she already had a different project that she had done before and it had became famous. When she landed, the military folks or whoever were checking her in at the airport found out who she was, took her in a separate room, And they were like, we need to go through your bags to see what kind of propaganda stuff you have. I'm trying to remember this off memory. And I remember she says something like, oh, yeah, I need to use the bathroom. And she goes to the bathroom and starts flushing shit down the toilet because she doesn't want to get caught, because God knows what they're going to do to her. And she is such an incredible, beautiful, brave soul that even regardless of that, she was like, fuck this. I am still going to go out with my camera. I am still going to capture all this. So to me, Jihan, yourself, these beautiful, amazing female influencers in Egypt who are currently in prison and the ones who just got released, to me, that is the true representation of Egypt women. That's how I see Egypt women. Like, powerful, but also like a fuck you, we're still gonna do what we want to do. You know what I'm saying? Now, you talked about you were in the middle of you were part of the revolution. So tell me about that. Were you there like the first time in the streets, protesting, marching? Tell me about that.
I mean, I was terrified, and I can't believe that it's almost now 10 years ago. The 10 years anniversary actually is coming up, and it's bringing up a lot of emotions and also thinking about the last 10 years and the trajectories of our lives. But I was terrified. I went there, I went alone, and it was my first protest ever. I was also, I think, 25, so I was also really young, and I was scared. I was scared of police officers, of course. I was scared of the police, but I was also scared of men in general. I was scared of being raped, of being harassed. I was scared because this is something also, this strategy that the Mubarak regime used to do, is to spread male thugs among the protesters, to harass, to violently and sexually harass female protesters. But I remember that once I walked into the square, I felt an immense sense of safety and security that I never felt in Egypt, I think, ever after or before,
Wow.
being protected by the masses. And this was something like, this was the most crowded place I have ever been in my life, but at the same time, the most safe place I've ever been in my life, because I was just protected by this huge number of people who were all there for the same reason as I was. And this fear was transformed into the sense of belongingness, the sense of safety and security, and believing in the struggle. And this is what gave me the bravery to sort of continue, go back there on the streets every day. It was and still is the most inspiring thing that I have witnessed in my life. I still believe that somehow it's a blessing and a curse. So I was so lucky to witness history in the making, but it's also a curse, because you cannot get over it. It's a foundational moment in my life that really transformed the trajectory of my life, of my interests, of my beliefs. And it's something that I will never forget. But I will also never forget the women who were there on the square. So many women from all different backgrounds, from all different socioeconomic classes, education levels. You had mamas and grandmas and hajjas, and you had your young women, students, even teenagers coming with their families, and it was really, really something that I still choose to remember it beautifully.
Dina, did you witness people being trampled and people, when I watched the documentary, The Square, there's literally some really raw footage of guys being ran over by a tank, like their entire face being just fucking mangled because they're crushed under the tank. Did you witness anything like that? I mean, my goodness.
I did witness a lot of violence. So it wasn't all just beautiful and inspiring. And thank you for asking this question. But I did witness a lot of violence and street clashes also. So I really witnessed people like trying to defend themselves against police officers with guns and tanks with stones and small things and trying to collect things from the street just to have like so there were a lot of street clashes, and I did witness them, and I think this is also part of what kept me going, or gave me bravery to keep going, is that when you witness such violence, you feel even more and more invested in what's happening, and you feel like, no, I cannot leave these people alone, and just go back home and move on with my life after what I saw.
Yeah. We watched in America the Arab Spring, as they called it, of course, started in Tunisia and then kind of spread in different Arab countries, and we witnessed it here. And it was, I remember the first time I watched it on television and had goosebumps and had tears in my eyes and so moved by it, and was just like, and one of the things that I was hoping is that the Arab Spring was going to eventually become the South Asian Spring, or the Pakistani Spring, or the Indian Spring, and sadly, somewhere along the line, that spring was diminished by corrupt politicians who do not want the ideology of democracy and freedom spread in the Middle East. And of course, then eventually, I was hoping it was going to go to South Asia, but sadly, it didn't. I actually wanted to ask you, like, do you feel now with the social media and how connected people are, do you feel like social media will play a huge role in bringing democracy to the Middle East?
I think it's important also to think about how also conservative forces are using social media. So it's not, and this is also all around the world. I mean, you have also Trump and Trump supporters using social media very, very well. So I think what has been happening is that as much as pro-democracy supporters or opposition figures are getting better and better in using these tools, also conservative forces, dictatorship regimes are getting better and better in using these tools to fuel hate, polarization, demonize people, attack LGBTQI population, attack women. So unfortunately, I'm growing more and more skeptical about how these tools can be a force of good. I think these are just tools that can be used in both sides, and actually dictatorship regimes and authoritarian regimes are the ones who have more money and more influence than ordinary citizens that can manipulate these tools.
Sure, absolutely. Dina, you are out there being this incredible force of change, being outspoken and speaking on these things. Do you get threats? Do you get death threats? Do you get threats via social media? What is that like for you?
I mean, I don't get a lot of threats, thank God. So that's not a big problem. But yes, I mean, there was a recent activist, an LGBTQ activist, a lesbian feminist activist. Just unfortunately, we lost her this year. She committed suicide, and this came after she was arrested, put in jail, went through PTSD, had to leave the country, and that was such a heartbreaking moment for me. And I was really vocal about her death and about what it symbolized. And then I started getting inbox messages about how I'm being a lesbian and I'm supporting lesbians and things like this.
Because you support a lesbian, therefore you're a lesbian, Dina? I didn't know that's how gay works.
That was the main logic. And I think he was asking me, the question was also, he wanted to know, how is it that I'm a lesbian and I'm married to a man? So I mean, that was scary.
Did you respond, or what did you say to him? Did you respond to him?
No, of course not. I was actually more concerned about of having my family members being harassed, because I can handle it and I can deal with it. But if it goes to my mother or my brother or my auntie, I mean, this is something that will really scare them. But yeah, so far nothing, no major death threats yet.
Thank God. Thank God. I've gotten a number of death threats over the years for stuff I've said.
So sorry.
No, it's fucking great. I love it. I just have fun with them. one of them actually wrote to me and said, "You will die in 3 days." And I don't know why.
Oh my God.
Every time I read it in a Pakistani accent because it was from a Pakistani guy. And I told him that his visa was gonna take longer than that. And then I never heard from him, Dina. I never heard from him. So disappointing. Still waiting for a response.
Yeah, still waiting for his visa, probably.
Still probably waiting for his visa. Yeah. I bet he's just working on getting that fee together so he can submit it. I mean, it's crazy to me. Dina, how safe is it for women in Cairo, in Alexandria, in main cities? We're not even going to go talk about the rural part of the country. Let's just talk about the main cities. How safe is it for women to travel and go to school and work and not being harassed at work and not being harassed at school, not being harassed in the streets, not be worried about getting raped just because you're going to school? What is that lifestyle like for women?
I mean, sexual harassment is something that is extremely pervasive in Egyptian society, and especially actually in the big cities. So in Cairo and Alexandria and the big cities, sexual harassment, especially in public spaces, is pervasive. It's a huge big. I don't think there is a woman that I know in Egypt who wasn't harassed. I would say like on daily basis, just going to work, just trying to exist, just taking public transportation. It's all a big risk. You really leave your house and it's all a big risk for you. And this is not to say that that women do take these risks and sort of work around them, but the amount of planning, the amount of thinking, the amount of energy that this takes, that you just walk in the street, what are you going to wear, which streets are you going to go, which route is safe, how is it that you don't stay late at night in the office so that you don't stay with a male colleague that you don't feel comfortable about. I mean, the amount of this thinking that almost becomes intuitive to you as you grow up there and live there. You just become intuitive. It's a second nature to you. And then, to be honest, when you travel and then go, like I live in Berlin, for instance, you feel like so much energy in your life that you've been wasting. It's not like that, like the whole world is not a safe place for women. I mean, there is no safe place for women.
That's true.
But there are safer spaces, and the amount of energy you put into your daily attire in order to look modest and not inviting, whatever that means, or in order to be not seen, or just just have a normal day. It's really exhausting.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Do the cops not come in? Can the woman not walk up to the cop and be like, "This piece of shit is harassing me"?
It's actually changing. Okay. So before that, it wasn't taken seriously at all. We didn't even have sexual harassment in the law. This is something that we had to work very hard in order to have it in the law. I think it was put there in 2013. And now it's actually changing as more and more women are taking the men to the police and saying, do something about it, and insisting on it, and going through the ordeal of that, which is not a fun process also. Like when women report, it's also a very difficult process, and some of them get secondary victimization or even harassed at the police station.
Sure.
But this is becoming more and more, this is changing. It's becoming more and more scary for men to sexually harass women,
because the cops are taking notes and arresting these men and punishing them. Like, what's happening to these guys?
Because the women are dragging these men to the police station and and saying, I want to file a complaint, I want this guy arrested, and I want something to be done, and I think this is what is changing things.
I love it. Are these women then kind of dragged in court? Are they being demeaned? Are they then, so what happens to these guys? So, okay, I want to file a complaint. Okay, do they follow through on the complaint? What happens to these guys? Do they get jail time? Do they have to pay a fine? What happens to them?
Yeah, in the law, there is a fine and jail time depending on the exact nature of the crime. But of course, the whole process is very difficult, from filing a complaint to having witnesses, to finding witnesses. who are willing to testify. This man groped her on the street in front of us. We saw him. And then there's always pressure. But you will ruin his future. You will ruin his life. Just get over it. It wasn't a big deal. He's just a young man. He wasn't thinking straight. And there's a lot of also societal pressure for them to drop the complaints.
Sure.
And the women who do continue to, who have the energy to fight and continue the complaint are not many. But at least the initial complaint or the initial threat of calling the police is becoming more and more prevalent.
Wow. So that's good. So that's a really good, big, positive change that's happening. So women are like, it's okay to take space. I'm going to be talking about this, whether you freaking like it or not. I'm going to be talking about this. How are families usually supportive of their own girls going out and putting in complaints? Like, I'm sure it varies from family to family, but is that something that is more welcome now and seen as like a positive thing where family members are like, yes, I'm glad you went and filed a complaint against that guy? What is that like?
Unfortunately not. First of all, they're afraid for their daughters, which is very understandable because also the process of going through a complaint is a very complicated process, and you could end up being also a victim of violence or harassed, or I mean, it's not an easy thing. So they are usually afraid, and it's very understandable. I mean, I don't know if there's also a huge Me Too movement happening in Egypt right now, and a lot of testimonies are coming out against sexual harassment and sexual violence and rape. Okay. And some of the testimonies that are coming out, unfortunately, show a very scary pattern of families either not believing their daughters, they don't believe them when they come to them with a story of sexual violence, or they prefer that they stay silent. So even when they know and they believe them, they pressure the women to not say anything because of this will have a scandal and the family honor and all of this. And what is sad is also even in educated families, so even in middle class, upper middle class families, you also have this. And this debunks the myth somehow that this only happens in lower class families and progressive people don't do this. But unfortunately, even upper middle class families pressure the women not to pursue. Sometimes the women, even young women, they want to pursue a legal route or go to the police, and the families pressure them because of fear of scandal or backlash, or because they are afraid that their daughters will also be threatened by the rapists. They pressure them to stay silent.
Dina, does it matter if you're a woman of like a wealthy background and you were sexually harassed and you go and file a complaint? Would her complaint be taken a lot more seriously and the guy would be punished a lot more intensely versus someone who belongs to a middle or a lower class?
It's interesting, the cases that we have been seeing recently. So let's say if the woman is from an upper middle class family and the man is like from a working class family or a working class background, then there is more possibility that she will get her way than him. But let's say if they are both from upper middle class families or they're both from rich families, then the woman will be silenced. So it's interesting. So I mean, class helps in so far. I mean, there's also a limit to how much your class or your social background or how rich your family can be helpful. Once it is also another rich family, another rich man, then definitely the rich man will win.
Of course, Dina, I always talk about how sexual harassment, sexual demeaning, sexual aggression, are all stepping stones. They're all stepping stones that lead to rape, sexual assault, murder, right? These are all stepping stones, right? So the more bullshit that a guy gets away with, he's like, oh, I can do that and not have any repercussions? Cool. Let me try this. Oh, I did that and nothing happened? Cool. Let me try something else. How bad is the rape statistics in Egypt?
We don't have official numbers. That's the thing, because women do not report. I mean, the official numbers are there, but they're very, very low. and no one trusts them because women either do not report, because it's also a taboo topic. It's something that's being silent. So we cannot even trust the official statistics on how many rapes. But what we see from the Me Too movement now with the anonymous testimonies that are coming out, most of them, especially with rape, most of them are anonymous testimonies. There is a pervasiveness that is in all sectors. So you have in the media sector, you have in the education sector, you have in the even in the profit organizations. So you have a pervasiveness of sexual assault and sexual rape and rape. That is that I think the conversation now is people are becoming more and more aware now of how pervasive it is. But the official numbers, we cannot trust them.
Wow. Because is there even a dedicated department or a dedicated something, an NGO or something that keeps tallies of these anonymous rapes and sexual assaults that are reported? Is there even someone who keeps tallies of this?
Yes, there are several amazing feminist NGOs who are still trying to operate under very difficult conditions, and they are trying to collect testimonies. They are trying even to pursue court cases. Whenever the survivors of violence want to pursue court cases, they support them with that. And there was one recent case where the rapist, was arrested actually recently in July after a break of so many testimonies about him, dating back for years actually. It seems that he had been doing this for at least the past, 7 years. And when these testimonies came out and they circulated through social media, there was a lot of pressure on the government to open an investigation. Some of the survivors came forward and gave the statements, and he was arrested, and he's actually in jail now.
Wow. He's in jail because what? You said he testified, you said?
No, he raped so many women in the past, let's say 7 years or something. There were so many testimonies, and some of the survivors decided to come forward and file an official complaint. And they were brave enough to do this, even with the risk of having a scandal and even with the risk of retaliation, but they were brave enough to do this, and the guy got arrested at the end after a lot of public pressure.
And so he's rotting in jail now, or what's his deal?
He's waiting his court sentencing, but yes, he's in jail now waiting for his court sentencing.
So only after, it almost reminds me of what has happened with Bill Cosby in America, right? For years, for decades, this man has been drugging women and raping them, and nobody believed these women. Nobody, right? This is in America that this is happening. Over 50 women have come out and accused him of, and now, of course, finally he's gotten convicted, and now he's trying to play the I'm so old. It's like you're a piece of shit, fucking rotten hell, asshole. I look at that and I look at some. It seems that around the globe, women's words are not of any importance.
Yeah.
Our words, our stories, our pain does not have any value unless there's tons of us that have to come out and scream and shout and say, I'm going through this too, and the other ones do saying. And it's only then, and by the way, in Bill Cosby's case, and I don't know if you know this, the only reason Bill Cosby's cases were, reopened and brought back to surface is because a comedian, because Bill Cosby's a black comic, and also another black male comic, and I love him to pieces, Hannibal Buress.
I love him also.
He's great. Hannibal Buress went on stage and started talking about how Bill Cosby's been raping women all these years and has been getting away with it. And that's the only reason. So it had to take another male comic to validate what these women had been screaming for years, Dina. This is in America. Forget about Egypt. Forget about Pakistan. Forget about anybody else. This is in America. So there's I believe, I feel, and I am also a part of this big shift that is happening about our voices being heard, our complaints being taken seriously, not being dismissed. When we say something, it's like believe women. That has been a big hashtag in America. When the Women's March happened, did the Women's March take place in Egypt?
Yes, but not for so many years now. There used to be a women's march on International Women's Day, but for a few years now, unfortunately, it didn't happen. But I participated in several ones, and one of them I remember was extremely inspiring, where we filled the streets of Cairo of women, stopping downtown Cairo completely, and it was really beautiful. And I have to say that I have been following also your videos on sexual harassment within comedy circles, and I find them extremely inspiring and so important, that the work you do in terms of believing the survivors are also speaking out against other male comedians who are also using and abusing their power, and it's truly inspiring. And I think these voices, both of our voices resound, and I think we need to hear each other and we need to believe each other. And I think these struggles are connecting right now all across the globe in a way that has never happened before. And that's the only way, because they will not believe us otherwise. And yes, sometimes it takes a male ally, and sometimes even a white male ally, who would come out and say, listen, hear them, listen to them. They are saying the truth. And unfortunately, yes, sometimes, most of the times, they don't take our word for it.
Yes. Would you say there are a lot of Egyptian male allies in Egypt?
I think it's changing. So let's say it's maybe it wasn't the same case of 10 years ago. I think there are more and more younger men also finding out, also struggling with patriarchy themselves, and feeling that they are being oppressed by also patriarchy and by unrealistic masculine expectations and unrealistic ideas about manhood, and they're also trying to break away from that. And one way is by supporting women's rights. So it is changing. And the latest conversation with the Me Too movement, you had a lot of men who also talked about their own experiences of sexual violence and sexual harassment, especially also gay men. And this in itself is a big shift, and a very interesting shift, where also men are trying to join the conversation, and sort of trying to say, we need to do better.
Yeah. Speaking of gay men and LGBTQ people in Egypt, I live in one of the gayest part of Los Angeles called West Hollywood.
Lucky you.
Lucky me. I'm so lucky. It's always I have a ton of gay friends, as you can imagine. This is not the way as a straight woman to find a husband, by living in a private neighborhood, which means I'm going to die alone if I continue living in the neighborhood. But at least I will die being happy and fabulous.
Exactly. Yeah.
That being said, I have one of my gay friends who has been a world traveler for the longest time. He's a white American guy born and raised in California. He was telling me about his trip to Cairo many moons ago. And he said, I met this really handsome Egyptian man who was gay. And he said, I was staying at one of the international hotels where foreigners stay. And I asked him to come up to my room, like we were going to have our little hookup and rendezvous. And he talked about how incredibly dangerous it was for this man to be even seen to go into the hotel room and come out. I said, what? He said, he was telling him that if they find out that I am here with you, he's like, some unmarked anonymous car is going to come up, pick me up, and I will disappear forever. And my family will never know where the fuck I went. Is that still a thing, Dina, in Egypt?
Unfortunately, yes. So unfortunately, yes, this is still very dangerous for LGBTQI communities to just exist, really. And I have a lot of comrades in the movement, and they're my friends, and I love them. And they really, really struggle in order to just be able they're threatened to be outed. They could be arrested. They're also very prone to sexual violence, and even though it is not illegal in Egypt, homosexuality is not illegal, but then they also use the clauses about inciting debauchery and such legal clauses in order to crack down on the gay community. Every few years, there's another crackdown on the gay community, unfortunately, and there's a lot of baiting also. So you have to live with this, knowing that you could be baited on an app. It's not safe for you to use an app, or for you to meet someone in a bar, and then it could be a disguised police officer who's just doing this in order to arrest you. It's a very, very difficult life, but also they are extremely inspiring and strong in trying to every day just exist, really. But it's quite dangerous. Yes, definitely.
Dina, do they this thing about debauchery? It seems to keep coming up for women, for minorities mostly, for women, for LGBTQI. Is that a debauchery? Is that also a thing that's used against Coptic Christians in Egypt? Is that part of the constitution, or is that just something they just pull out of their ass to just hold people down?
It's not part of the constitution, actually. I would assume even that this law could be challenged as unconstitutional. But it is there in order to protect religious values or something around this idea. Yeah, this idea of protecting religious values. Whatever that means.
Oh, the religious values.
Yeah.
Dina. God, yes, of course, the religious values. Yes,
yeah, exactly.
Religions predominantly found by men, run by men, Dina. Of course, religious values. If it's not religion used to control minorities, then it's capitalism. If it's not capitalism, then it's about the well-being of the nation. It is about the well-being. That's why you have to give me the power. It is I know Egyptian is a predominantly Muslim country. Is Islam, or is Islam kind of Islamic law being kind of instilled in kind of everyday people's lives, or what is the thing about that?
Not at all. Actually, our laws are predominantly civil laws, and this has been the case for years. We don't really have Sharia law or Islamic law. I mean, the only part of the law. No, it's a secular law. We have a secular law. It's a civil law. It's the only part of the law that they used to say it was inspired by Sharia or comes from Sharia is the personal status law. So against the laws used to control women. Personal status law are the laws about marriage, divorce, custody, and this is the only case where they go back to and say that we cannot have a secular law. We need to have and even these laws have been changed and reinterpreted. I mean, so in reality, we don't have Sharia law in Egypt. We never had Sharia law. We don't have Islamic law. We never had it. It has always been a secular legislative framework. But yeah, every now and then, whenever they want to control part of the population, they can use a legal clause like this, inspired by Islam.
Brought to you by oppression.
Exactly.
Sponsored by oppression. Oh, that's lovely. Isn't it so convenient, Dina, when they just pull out Sharia, be like, oh, I'm sorry. Everything else is secular, but when it comes to like your uterus and your titties,
yeah,
and your ass,
exactly,
pull out the Sharia on you. Yeah. To let you know that your uterus and your titties and your ass, I kind of get to call the shots on it. I get dibs on that. Do women get groped a lot in public transportation? In Egypt,
Yeah, I think that's a pretty standard experience to be groped on a metro or a bus or yeah, that's something we've just living with. It's like when I walk into the metro here, it's like, what? No one's gonna grope me today? What's happening?
But I offer it here, Dina. As a woman in my 30s, I offer it because nobody wants it. Do you know what I'm saying? Please, that away. We don't. Please put that. I just ate. Please put that. Please.
I feel you. I feel you.
Yeah, that's just not a thing here. I tell the story on stage during one of my sets about being 11 years old and this guy grabbing my ass. I'm being an 11-year-old. You're a child. You're not even developed. And because I grew up with brothers, I have 4 older brothers. I'm the youngest and the only girl. I grew up like a boy, thinking like a boy because I'm very tomboyish. And I remember chasing after this guy.
Amazing.
Yeah, chasing down. And there's all these cab drivers outside. And I'm like, catch this guy. He touched my ass. And they grab him. And I walk up to him like, you fucking piece of shit. I was like, didn't you just fucking touch me? He's like, oh, no, sister. I'm like, oh, I'm your sister, motherfucker. I'm like, I'm your sister now, you piece of shit.
Amazing.
Yeah, and my mom came and she's like, what happened? I'm like, this guy touched my ass. But, it's interesting because so many women would never do that. So many women, because they would be the one be like, oh my God, I have to carry the brunt and the shame of this. Or there's going to be as you said, scandal that is like, oh my God, is Mona like the one who was putting her ass out there? I'm fucking 11 years old. What am I going to put my ass out? I didn't even know I had an ass back then. Like, what the fuck, So like you look at that and you're like, wow, man, I wish of course, granted, there's also this danger of being, ridiculed or possibly somebody coming and stalking you down and trying to hurt you because you're outspoken. But I feel like more women need to open their mouths. More women.
I agree.
This bullshit. No, this is not welcome. You do not get to do this.
I agree. I mean, I also understand when women decide to not open their mouths. I also really understand. Sometimes it's unsafe. Sometimes it's scary. Sometimes it's fear of being singled out. Sometimes it's just not the day. You just want to go through your day and just, I can't fight anymore today. But I do believe that there is a lot of power in as many women as possible just not shutting up. I think there's a lot of power in that.
Yep.
And all over the world, and I think there are resounding voices, and we hear each other at some point, and inspire each other and empower each other just by not shutting up.
That's right. Dina, I'm always fascinated. Where are the brothers, the fathers, the sons of these women that are being harassed and being jailed for debauchery and for devaluing family honor? Where are these men, Dina?
Actually, sometimes they're being blamed for not being able to control those women. So there's also a lot of pressure on these brothers and fathers.
Exhausting. I need to take a nap after this conversation.
I'm sorry.
I'm fucking exhausted listening to this garbage out of these people.
I'm so sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I am sorry for my sisters around the world who have to live with this shit. I live in America, like whatever. I live in the gayest part of LA. Nobody's harassing me. I'm fine. But it's exhausting listening to the kind of things that you're telling me. I mean, these men, what do they do to these men? What? These men are being shamed? You should have controlled your woman?
Yes, they're actually, and I think there is a lot of bravery in some of the fathers and the brothers who stand up and support their sisters and their daughters, but at the same time they're constantly also under pressure by patriarchy to perform an ideal version of manhood where they have to control their women to a very violent degree. So there's also a lot of pressure on them to beat their women, to put them in their houses, not let them go out. And I mean, but you have more and more, I have to say, brothers and fathers who are becoming more and more supportive of their daughters and believing them and standing by them and standing against society and saying, no, being a man is not like this. This is not being a man. Or if this is being a man, then I don't want to be that man. That's right. And this is slowly changing, I have to say.
That's pretty awesome. That's pretty, I mean, I'm sure it's at like a turtle speed moving, but it is slowly shifting just a little bit of it, right? Every day, just a little bit of it. Are there is there freedom of press in Egypt?
Not really, not recently. I have to say. I mean, I have to say, there's also very, very good outlets who are trying to do investigative journalism and independent journalism that are still operating, and they really do a good work. But overall, unfortunately, I wouldn't say freedom of speech, no.
So the current Prime Minister of Egypt is that, oh, sorry, the president is Sisi, right? Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, right? Is Sisi
exactly.
not? Yeah. So what is it? Is it by force, or are there democratic elections that take place every 4 years the way they do in the U.S.?
I mean, for now, there have been elections. So the elections happened, they took place, and it was, let's say, fairly democratic, let's say. But I think there is now a constitutional amendment that should allow him to run for open-ended terms, and this is extremely undemocratic, as you can imagine. So it seems that the current leadership is staying.
The current leadership is staying for an indefinite time. I mean, how many years are we looking at?
Yeah, I mean, I cannot predict it, but it seems that for now it's an indefinite time.
So we're back to a dictatorship then. Am I to understand this?
I think it is a bit different, I have to say. There are some winnings that were gained. There are some spaces that was taken that cannot be reversed. But in many cases, unfortunately, yes, you can talk about a dictatorship, definitely.
Right, because when there is no democratic election, and when it is not to the people, for the people, by the people, then you are looking at a tyrannical dictator. I mean, that's kind of what you're looking at. In the Egyptian, political system, does the president have more power than the prime minister, or how does that work?
It's a presidential system.
It's a presidential system. Because in Pakistan, it's more, even though we have a president, the prime minister has more power than the president. This has been such a fascinating conversation, Dina. Thank you so very much for giving me a glimpse of the world, that that we are sharing the same common struggles, and we're talking about the same common things, but also looking at how things are playing out in Egypt. So now you're a research associate currently, right? At the University of Berlin. So do you have kind of any ambitions of going back to Egypt and running in the political system of any kind? Where's your kind of head at?
I mean, we will see. I just finished my PhD, so I'm very happy about that. I just finished it a couple of months ago. And we will see. I mean, we will see what are the possibilities for me to be in Egypt and to contribute. And I would definitely, I still go back every few months, and I would definitely love to contribute from wherever I am in the political life in Egypt, definitely.
What is it? You're married, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Did you marry an Egyptian man?
No. No, he's originally Lebanese, but born and raised in Germany.
Oh, how cool. Oh, Lebanese men, they're hot. I get it.
Yes, I have to say.
I get it, Dina. I totally get it. Does he come to Egypt with you?
Yes, he does.
Fabulous. That's fabulous. I mean, look at the mess that's happening in Lebanon right now. Like the situation in Beirut. I mean, all the poor brothers and sisters are struggling. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Very sad. Yeah.
Same level of corruption, talking about not caring about their people. These containers with this dangerous,
bomb, basically.
6 years it was sitting on the port, Dina. 6 years, they didn't care.
Ridiculous. Yeah, it's extremely sad, and we have family there, and they're really struggling. It's really tough.
Yeah. So much pain and suffering, Dina, around the world right now. The world is in pain. We are, I really believe 2020 is a year of reckoning. 2020 is like the Vision 2020, right? Everything clears up. You get to see everything. To me, that's what 2020 to me is on a more spiritual conversation, on a more spiritual level. I look at that and, I feel the kind of work you're doing, the kind of work I'm trying to do. I mean, I'm mostly slinging dick jokes on stage, but I try to have these very meaningful conversations because I'm very passionate about them and they mean the world to me. Because I feel like until people around the world, especially my sisters, are not free, then I am not free either. So their struggle is also my struggle. And whatever I can do to contribute and alleviate their pain, I will die a happy person, right?
And your dick jokes are very inspiring.
Thank
really.
Thank
your
you so
videos
much.
and dick jokes are do not underestimate them. They are extremely inspiring. I loved your videos and really I do feel like that we share the same struggle.
Yes, absolutely, Dina. There is absolutely no denying about that. My believe it or not, some of my big following on my fan page on Facebook are Egyptians.
You are extremely funny to Egyptians, I have to say.
Apparently, and I was like, that's amazing.
So it would make sense. Yeah, I found you really, really, and I think there's something also about you being a brown woman and talking about important issues and also feeling the pain of women coming from Muslim majority countries and even us in the diaspora. So I'm not surprised.
I'm look, the MENA region, of what our sisters go through there. I'm always amazed. Dina, do you ever come across women from the Khalij area, the Khalij nations, who talk about their struggle as openly as you and I do?
Yes, there are many feminist activists in Bahrain, even from Saudi Arabia that I have met and interacted with, extremely knowledgeable. Many of them are in the diaspora, but they also face a different level of repression.
Yeah.
They also, you have daughters of princes being kidnapped and arrested and hidden somewhere. So for the average citizen, it's a different level of danger and repression. But I honestly have met them and their struggles are very inspiring, and they also try to advance as much as possible within their societies.
I mean, have you ever performed the Holy Pilgrimage, Dina?
No.
I performed the Holy Pilgrimage as a very young teenager. And to me, the government of Saudi Arabia, MBS, himself is a cancer. This cancer that they have managed to spread in other Muslim countries, known as Wahhabism, is a real cancer. And we see huge ramifications of it in Pakistani society. I mean, you really see it because every time Saudi Arabia comes by and drops us a check, they also expect us to up our madrasas. They expect us to get more conservative, instill more Sharia law. They expect those things because they want their cancerous Wahhabism being spread among Pakistani society, because that's how they get to keep their control and dominance when it comes to predominantly Muslim countries. Do you have you been to Saudi Arabia at all? Or?
No, never. But we have the same problem with Wahhabism in Egypt. It's the same thing. It's also rising regional dominance, also based on funding and donations, and since the 80s, it's becoming more and more radical, and it's the same scenario.
Yeah, it's the same. Yeah, it just keeps getting worse and worse with these. Yeah, right. It's always just using religion to be like, Allah says that you have to bang me 5 times a day, and if you don't, then you're gonna burn in hell. It's like, you know what?
I would rather burn in hell. That's fine.
You know what? Why don't you blow yourself? Like, I'm gonna go. Like, I don't have time for this shit. Like, I got laundry to do. I got fucking take care of the kids. I don't have time for this shit. I gotta go. it's always and sorry, Dina, have you noticed that it's always about their dicks? It's always about that. It's always about, how can you please me? How can you do this for me? I saw this video long time ago, this Egyptian mullah who talked about how women are not allowed to touch bananas and cucumbers because it resembled the phallic. You remember this asshole?
Yeah.
I remember this asshole. Like, this is a while back. This is like 8 years ago or something. And because it says in the Quran, because, oh my God. So I was like, yeah, so then you're not allowed to touch oranges and grapefruits either, because that's like, could be our boobs. Like, geez, do that, because like, don't you get an erection when you touch that? And I look at that, and I used to run this comedic website called MuslimsDoItBetter.com. And I used to talk about all the crazy shit that goes down in all these Muslim worlds. And I got a lot of shit for it, because I made an image of like me holding the Quran and holding a banana in the other hand and looking at the Quran being like, I don't see a banana written in the Quran anywhere. But that's the kind of twisted shit that has been going down for years. And the only way I believe that we can start doing that is to start separating religion and state, start giving freedom of speech, start giving freedom of press. Let's just start there. We'll figure out other things out. But those are kind of the fundamental things I believe. How do you feel about that?
I agree completely. And I think many intellectuals in the region, whether in South Asia or whether in the Middle East, they all say the same. They say, let's start with the promotion of human rights, gender equality. Let's start with citizenship, with secular laws. Let's understand that this is also predominantly Muslim, but not all the citizens are Muslims. You also have Coptics, Coptic Christians. You also have other religions. Let's try to keep the state out of this and keep the place of worship, religion, to the place of worship. Yep. And I mean, this is a predominant mainstream conversation that has been for years been the intellectuals' point about how to move forward. But unfortunately, conservative forces are not accepting, because they use religion to push patriarchy, to push dictatorship, to push oppression.
Yep, they keep their power, Dina.
Yeah, exactly.
It's about power. It isn't about religion. These Saudi assholes, the government that claim themselves to be so religious and they're so about Allah. They're the assholes who are getting these beautiful blondes to come and have sex with and to pay them off. And they fuck whoever they want, but then they have to go back and be like these goody two-shoes and marry a Muslim woman while they're banging like 15 fucking chicks on the side. But Allah forgives them because they're men. Because they're men,
Yeah.
It's not my fault. It's my dick. It's like my fault. Like, God made me this. It's really Allah's fault, because Allah just made me this way. And I can't control my erections. Goodness.
Please control your erections.
I can't control. God gave me these erections. It's not my fault. What am I going to do?
Oh my God.
What am I going to do? Dina, this has been such a great conversation. Dina, where can people follow you? Where can we follow you?
I mean, I have a Twitter account. I have a Facebook account. I mean, I would be happy also to send you my email in case they want to contact me. That's also possible. Why
don't you tell us about your, is it just your name, Dina Wahba, on Facebook and Twitter?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, fabulous. Well, Dina, this isn't the last time that you'll be coming back on. We will definitely.
I hope so. I take your word for it. And please come to Berlin. I would love to see you. And when I come to LA, I will definitely let you know.
I would love to. I love coming to Germany. My ex is a scientist who lives in Cologne.
Oh, then please come and give us both a visit.
I would love to come. I love Germany. I had a great time in Germany. So it was awesome. But Dina, thank you so very much for
Thank you so much, Mona, for giving me this space.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. That was the lovely and wonderful Dina Wahba. I hope you guys enjoyed that conversation. I thoroughly enjoyed that conversation. I love talking to fellow brown badass women doing badass things. That's what I'm about. You guys, I will see you tomorrow with a male feminist. He is amazing. He's a director and a producer of a new series called Churels, which translates to witches. He is a British Pakistani director and producer, and he has made this groundbreaking series, and we're going to be having some real fantastic conversation with him. So please, tomorrow is going to be 5 p.m. Pacific. I'm sorry I'm messing up my times a little bit, but I'm trying to accommodate these international folks I'm trying to bring in and bring you guys some good, great quality content. But I will see you guys tomorrow at 5 p.m. Pacific. Have a nice day.